Hi guys, let me pull up my notes for today. Today we're going to do something a little different. So I know on the schedule on It's Learning and in your packet, this was supposed to be day 10. We are going to push that off till after spring break because that was going to be plant hormones and that was going to be a lot of stuff to do the day before your break. So we're going to do something a little different today. So what you will need is basically a little scratch sheet of paper or a sheet of loose leaf. It does not have to be anything fancy. Just a little Post-it pad even will probably work, a Post-it note. So if you need to pause this video and go get something to write with and a piece of paper, you're fine. You do not have a section of notes for this. Okay, there's no fill-in notes for this packet. You just need a piece of paper and something to write with. And then I'll tell you what to do with it when we're done. So what I did today was I took my afternoon walk around the neighborhood, just like I'm encouraging you all to do. And I tried to look for interesting plants that are pretty common in the South, probably growing where you are. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about them today. So what you need to do is, as I tell you what kind of plant it is, you need to write down the common name. Because on a Google form, I will have you submit the plants in order, okay, and what those plants are. Okay, I haven't made the Google form yet, but you just basically need to write down the 10 plants that we're discussing, and you have to listen to my lecture because I don't print them in the notes anywhere, so you got to listen to what I'm saying. Okay, and then that'll be the last thing besides the quiz that's due, the secondary growth and stems. That is due Friday night by midnight. This is also due Friday night by midnight. And then you are off to spring break and you have no assignments to do over the break. So let's get started. Okay, so these are all pictures I took. Well, not that one, but I took these two pictures today in my parents' yard. This is a dogwood tree. So plant number 1 is dogwood, spelled just like it sounds. All right. The dogwood bark, see how it has all these little irregular sections on it? Okay. To me, and what I've read is that it kind of looks like a dog's nose if you look at that. So that's how whenever you're out and about, you can always tell that it's dogwood, even if it's not flowering, because of those little irregularly shaped sections, just like you see on a zoomed in picture of a dog's nose. This is what a typical dogwood flower looks like. But the flowers, as you'll see on the next slide, are really just this. Okay? So some of the things that I'm showing you here might actually help you with your plant portfolio. So remember I told you with your plant portfolio that I only need 20 total entries now. So if you want to do 5, where you take a picture of a plant, like you could do the bark and the flower if you want to, like I'm doing here. But you need to include the scientific name of it. So I just downloaded the PlantSnap app somewhere. Yeah, I downloaded PlantSnap, which is a free app. You can just upload pictures that you have already taken and it'll identify them. So anyway, let's look at the dogwood flower. Okay. So the dogwood flowers are actually these little things in here. I'm not sure what these larger things are, whether they're going to become the stamens, I'm not sure. But anyway, these are bracts. So if you've already started your plant portfolio, you know that bracts are a term that you need to find. So you could take a nice picture of a dogwood flower, since those are blooming right now. The only thing I would ask you to do is please don't double dip. If you use a dogwood flower for a bract, then don't use it as one of your 5, here I took a picture of this plant and now I'm giving you the scientific name. Okay, you got to choose where you want to use it. So to me, I would use that for bract and then find some other picture of a flower or plant to identify. Does that make sense? So this, once again, number 1 is dogwood. Number 2, this is a plant that's really common this time of year. We associate it with early spring. We associate it with the Masters golf tournament down in Augusta. This, of course, is your azalea. Okay, So that is Azalea, azalea. And these come in all different colors. They come in pink, they come in white, they come in like a brighter pink like this, and they come in like a baby pink, like a light pink. They come in just all different colors. I thought this was kind of neat because the first thing you should look at when you see something like this is say, oh, I wonder if it's a dicot or a monocot. Well, the direct petals that I see are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But then you say, well, what are these back here? Are these more petals? It turns out that with an azalea, these are the actual petals, and these in the back here, with some species of azalea at least, are modified sepals. Okay, so the ones that are more directly connected are the petals, and the ones in the back, like this is a single hose-in-hose azalea, which is kind of weird. We'll come back to that. Hold on. So if you ever see the terms calyx and corolla, the calyx refers to the sepals, the corolla refers to the petals. So in this flower in particular, you have sepals back here that have been modified to look like petals. All right, plant number 3. Okay, this is a picture I took today. It's from a tree that might look something like this. So maybe you've seen these really pretty purple trees in your neighborhood and you just wonder, like me, what they are. And I asked a gentleman who was gardening outside. He had a lot of different flowers in his yard. And I asked him what he was. And he said, well, we just always call it a redbud tree. And so it turns out, even though the flowers are purple, this is called a redbud because the buds themselves are red. So that's R-E-D-B-U-D, redbud. Okay, this I thought was really interesting because when I looked up more information about it, it said that bean-like pods appear after the flowers. So you'll go from flower to like a bean pod to a heart-shaped leaf. Which I just find fascinating that they can look like this in early spring and probably more like that in the summer, which I just think is really cool. So if you see something like that in your neighborhood, that is called a redbud tree. Plant 4. Okay, this is something we definitely associate with March, and this is a cherry blossom. Okay. Now, I went on a tree walk a few weekends ago where they were showing us how to identify certain trees. And cherry blossom trees usually have more of a horizontal pattern in their bark, and it's usually kind of grayish, almost like a wallpaper sort of finish. And what you'll see on some cherry blossom trunks is you'll see these little things here, these little horizontal patterns, and those are called lenticels. Okay? Lenticels are to the bark what stomata are to the leaves. Okay, we know stomata allows for gas exchange. Well, apparently certain trees, not just cherry blossoms, but certain trees have these lenticels which allow for gas exchange in the trunk itself. And then, of course, you're probably familiar with that kind of light whitish pink sort of color of a cherry blossom. So the way you can identify a cherry blossom, if you're not sure if the flower is it, look for that grayish color bark with more of a horizontal pattern and look for those lenticels. Now, again, it might be possible to find a cherry blossom tree that is not quite of age to show lenticels yet, but that's usually a telltale sign. So number 4 is a cherry blossom. Number 5. So, as I was walking around my neighborhood, of course you see a lot of pine trees around, but there's all different species of pine trees. And so we can use a couple things to help identify what kind of pine it is. So I immediately noticed sort of this shingle or scale type pattern on the bark. Okay. And then one thing they taught us to do on our walk was to kind of look down, see what could have come from it. So there's some needles, there's some pine cones there. I know you might see something that look like acorns. I'm pretty sure those came from a different tree. But this pattern of bark is pretty unique to this plant. So this is called a loblolly pine. Loblolly is one word. So it's Loblolly, loblolly pine. Okay, that is plant number 5. Okay, this one's kind of near the end of its bloom right now, at least where I live. This one is yellow. It usually appears as kind of like a bush, and the flowers precede the leaves, which means you're probably still seeing some flowers now, but then once the flowers go away, the green leaves will start to appear, and there'll be no trace of yellow whatsoever. Okay, this one is called Forsythia. Okay, so let me see if I can write this. This is Forsythia. This is Forsythia, and it was named after the man who discovered this. Even though it is Asian in origin, it belongs to the same family of trees as the olive tree. So I just thought that was kind of interesting. Okay. Plant number 7. Oh, I had to do a good bit of research on this. So this is from my backyard, and I noticed that I get all these little pollen pods on my car this time of year. And maybe the whole pod doesn't fall, but I certainly get a lot of pollen. And then when I looked on the ground, my husband and I agreed that this is the kind of leaf that comes from there. And we also saw some small little acorns there. So I was able to look up different species of oak. So when you see acorns on the ground, you usually associate that with an oak tree, and different types of oak trees have different type of acorns and different shapes of leaves, and I'm sure even different pollen. Okay. So when I looked up this leaf shape, the bottom of it fell off. It doesn't just truncate like that, but it kind of has this sort of like a blade shape to it. And this is called a water oak. So water, you know what water is? Oak. This is a water oak. And so if you walk around your neighborhood or maybe even your yard and you see these dangling things of pollen and you look and you might see some acorns on the ground, chances are it's some kind of oak. You usually have to look at the acorn and the leaf shape to figure it out. You may even be able to look at some characteristics of the bark to figure that out. So number 7, once again, is a water oak. These are some of my favorites. This picture on the right I did not take because the wisteria is just coming out. So this is wisteria. That's Wisteria. Wisteria. And it is a woody vine that has these purple blooms hang down from it, and it's so pretty. And I'm sure you've heard of wisteria, but maybe you didn't know what it looks like, or maybe the opposite. Maybe you've seen this kind of vine, and like I said, it's not an herbaceous vine. It's not soft. It's a woody vine. It's got a woody type of stem to it. But maybe you've seen something like this and you just never knew what it was called. What you were looking at is called wisteria. Okay, plant 9. This is a real interesting story. So one of my good friends moved into our neighborhood a few years ago, about a year and a half ago, let's say, and her yard has all kinds of trees in it. And one of her daughter's friends came over and said, and this was when this tree had leaves on it. Right now, it's just starting to get a little bud with a leaf there. So this is a fig tree, fig, like F-I-G. This is a fig tree, and this is the kind of fruit, figs, that are produced from that tree. So her daughter's friend came over and says, "Oh, that's a fig tree. There's wasps that lay their eggs inside that fruit." And I'm like, that sounds too crazy to be true. So you know what I do when that happens. I look it up, and sure enough, that is kind of true. Apparently not that there's male fruit and female fruit, because there can't be male fruit, but there's a male structure that some of the wasps can crawl in, but that wouldn't be something that you'd eat. So anyway, I think it's fascinating. I really would like for you to watch this video clip that I will post alongside this lecture. That kind of shows you the life cycle. Like I said, I'm not going to test you on the fig wasp life cycle, but it's really interesting. And it'll probably gross you out at the same time. So please watch that. So this is kind of just a diagram of it. Like I said, it's kind of complicated. But I don't expect you to understand the whole thing, but please watch the video. And plant number 10. So this is the reason why I had to download that PlantSnap app that I told you about a little bit ago. It's called PlantSnap, just like it sounds. Because I knew, obviously, these look like little male cones at the end of the branches. I really didn't see much, at least right now, as far as female cones, but they could be on there. They could just be really tiny. And I didn't know what kind of plant it was. And so trying to look up the way the needles look gets really confusing. I could almost rule out it being a pine, but I was looking at spruce. I was looking at fir, and I forgot another conifer out there, which is cedar. So plant number 10 is a Japanese cedar, okay? Plant number 10 is a Japanese cedar, and it's got beautifully downward sloping branches. It's very, very pretty. You know, cedar has just the most amazing smell to its wood. A lot of people make the trunks, like wooden trunks, out of cedar. It's amazing wood, but the tree here was just as pretty. So once again, this number 10 is a Japanese maple. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to upload this to Google Classroom, and then I'm going to make you some kind of Google form where you're going to be listing for me the 10 types of trees that I showed you here. And my challenge for you is this. I would encourage you, since you're probably not going anywhere over spring break, I would encourage you to look for some of these plants in your neighborhood. And if you find one, send me a picture on Remind. It would make my day. That is not an assignment. You don't have to find all these. I know you already have a plant portfolio to do, but hopefully this maybe made it a little bit easier. At least I'm hoping it did. But you do have to complete the Google form where you tell me the names of the 10 plants we looked at. And of course, please do your own work here. If you can't watch a 17-minute video and list 10 plants, there's something wrong. So anyway, please have a wonderful and safe spring break, and stay safe and healthy. Miss you guys. Bye.